The small human ship Horizon drifted through the dark void of space, its metal hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Commander Alex Reed stood on the bridge, watching the vast emptiness through the main window. His crew of 12 had been traveling for 8 months, farther from Earth than any human had ever gone before. "Sir, we're picking up something on the scanners," called out Navigator Kate Morgan from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, her face lit by the blue glow of the screens. Alex walked over to look at the readings. Strange. Energy signatures were showing up on their sensors, unlike anything they had seen before. "What do you think it is?" "Unknown, Commander, but it's big, and it's moving toward us fast." Engineer Tom Parker looked up from his repair work near the back of the bridge. "Could be space debris, maybe from an old asteroid collision." Before anyone could respond, the ship's warning alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed across the bridge as Dr. Lisa Hayes rushed to her science station. "Multiple contacts approaching," she shouted over the noise. "They're not natural objects. These are ships, Commander. Alien ships." Alex felt his heart pound in his chest. This was it. After years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. "Everyone to battle stations. Kate, try to establish communication." The main screen flickered to life, showing 5 massive vessels approaching the horizon. They were unlike anything human engineers had ever imagined. The ships looked like giant insects made of dark metal, with long spikes and glowing red sections along their hulls. "Incoming transmission," Kate announced. The screen changed to show the interior of one of the alien ships. A creature that looked like a mix between a lizard and a spider sat in what appeared to be a command chair. Its forearms moved independently as it operated controls, while 6 yellow eyes focused on the camera. "I am General Crix of the Vorthak Empire," the creature spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "You have entered our territory without permission." Alex stepped forward, trying to appear calm despite his racing pulse. "I am Commander Alex Reed of the human vessel Horizon. We come in peace. We didn't know this space belonged to anyone." General Crix made a sound that might have been laughter. "Humans. We have heard whispers of your kind from the outer rim, primitive beings who have barely learned to leave their home world." "We're explorers," Alex replied. "We're just trying to learn about the galaxy." "Your exploring ends here," Crix said, his eyes narrowing. "Surrender your vessel immediately. You will be taken for questioning and your ship will be studied." Alex looked around at his crew. They were scared, but he could see determination in their faces. "I'm sorry, but we can't do that. We have families to return to." "Then you will be destroyed," Crix replied without emotion. "This is the price of defying the Vorthak Empire." The transmission ended, and Alex immediately turned to his crew. "All hands, prepare for combat." "Tom, how are our weapons?" "Functional but basic, sir," Tom replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Our lasers might scratch their paint, but those ships are armed with things we've never seen before." Chief Engineer Mike Stone's voice came over the communication system from the engine room. "Commander, I'm reading massive power buildup from their weapons. Whatever they're planning to hit us with, our shields won't stop it." Alex gritted his teeth. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but they weren't going to give up without a fight. "Fire everything we've got at their lead ship." The Horizon unleashed its small arsenal of laser weapons. Bright beams of light streaked across space toward the alien vessels. The attacks hit their targets but seemed to have no effect on the thick alien armor. "Their turn," Kate said quietly. The alien ships responded with weapons that looked like lightning made of green fire. The energy bolts struck the Horizon with tremendous force, causing the entire ship to shake violently. Lights flickered on and office systems struggled to handle the damage. "Hull breach in Section 4, Mike's voice crackled through the speakers. "We're losing atmosphere fast." Alex ran toward the damaged area with Tom and Dr. Hayes following close behind. When they reached Section 4, they found a hole in the ship's wall large enough for a person to crawl through. Space was visible through the gap, and emergency systems were working overtime to prevent all their air from escaping. "We need to seal this now," Tom said, grabbing emergency repair tools from a nearby storage unit. "If we lose much more atmosphere, We won't make it back to Earth. As Tom worked to close the breach, another energy bolt from the alien ship struck nearby. The impact threw him against the damaged wall, and a sharp piece of twisted metal cut deep into his arm. Blood began flowing freely from the wound, dripping onto the ship's steel framework around the hole. "Tom!" Dr. Hayes rushed to help him, pressing cloth against the cut to stop the bleeding. But something strange was happening where Tom's blood had touched the metal. The steel around the breach began to glow with a soft blue light. The glow spread outward from each drop of blood, and the metal itself seemed to be moving. What the hell? Tom stared at the wall in amazement. The hole in the ship's hull was closing by itself. The steel was flowing like liquid, filling in the gaps and sealing the breach. Within minutes, the wall looked as if it had never been damaged at all. The metal was smoother than before, and it seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. Dr. Hayes ran her medical scanner over the repaired section. "The readings are incredible. This isn't just a patch job. The molecular structure of the steel has completely changed." Alex touched the wall where the repair had happened. It felt warm under his palm, almost alive. "How is this possible?" Before anyone could answer, Kate's voice came over the communication system. "Commander, you need to see this. The aliens are backing away from us." They rushed back to the bridge, where the main screen showed the Vorthak ships moving to a safer distance. General Crix appeared on the screen again, but his expression had changed. The confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked like concern. "What kind of technology do you possess?" Crix demanded. "Our sensors detected massive energy readings from your vessel." Alex decided to bluff. "That's classified information, General." Crix's 6 eyes moved independently as he studied the human commander. "This encounter is not over, human. The Vorthak Empire will learn your secrets." The alien ships began to turn away, but before they could leave completely, Mike's voice came from the engine room. "Commander, we're about to lose main power. If we don't jump to hyperspace now, we'll be stuck here." "Do it," Alex ordered. The horizon vanished in a flash of light, leaving the Vorthak ships alone in space. General Crix stared at the empty area where the human vessel had been, his mind racing, with questions about what he had witnessed. The horizon drifted silently through a field of floating rocks, hidden from any passing ships. Commander Alex Reed had ordered the emergency hyperspace jump to take them to this remote asteroid belt, far from the Vorthak patrol routes. The ship's engines were quiet now, running on minimal power to avoid detection. "How long until we can make repairs?" Alex asked Chief Engineer Mike Stone, who was studying damage reports on his tablet. "At least 2 days, maybe 3, Mike replied, wiping grease from his hands. "The alien weapons did more damage than we first thought. But sir, there's something else you need to see." Alex followed Mike through the ship's corridors to Section 4, where the hull breach had mysteriously sealed itself. Other crew members had gathered there, including Dr. Lisa Hayes and Navigator Kate Morgan. They all stared at the wall where Tom Parker's blood had touched the metal. "It's still changing," Dr. Hayes said, holding her scanner toward the repaired section. "The molecular structure is completely different from the rest of the ship." Tom Parker sat nearby, his injured arm wrapped in bandages. "I can feel it," he said quietly. "It sounds crazy, but I swear I can feel the metal somehow." Alex knelt down and touched the wall. The steel felt warm and seemed to pulse gently under his palm. "What exactly happened here, Doc?" Dr. Hayes pulled up readings on her scanner's display. "When Tom's blood made contact with the steel, it triggered some kind of reaction. But this isn't just healing or repair work. The metal has actually evolved into something entirely new." "Evolved?" Kate asked, moving closer to examine the wall. "The atomic structure has changed at the most basic level," Dr. Hayes explained. "It's still steel, but it's steel that can think, react, and adapt. I've never seen anything like it in all my years of studying materials." Mike ran his own tests with engineering equipment. "The strength of this section is now 3 times greater than the original hull. It's also conducting energy more efficiently and seems to be connected to our ship's main system somehow." Alex stood up, trying to process what he was hearing. "Are you saying Tom's blood did this?" "Not just any blood," Dr. Hayes said, excitement growing in her voice. It has to be human blood, and it needs to be exposed to certain types of cosmic radiation that we've encountered out here in deep space. The combination creates a catalyst that transforms steel alloys. Tom looked at his bandaged arm. So, my blood can change metal? All human blood can, under the right conditions, Dr. Hayes replied. But the really incredible part is what the metal becomes afterward. She pressed her hand against the transformed wall section. Immediately, the metal began to glow brighter, and thin lines of light spread outward from her touch. It responds to human contact, she said. It's like the metal recognizes us now. Mike pulled out a small piece of regular steel from his toolkit. Let's test this theory. He pricked his finger with a sharp tool and let a few drops of blood fall onto the metal piece. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the steel began to change. It became smoother, and a faint glow appeared around the edges. Incredible, Alex whispered. But why is this happening? Dr. Hayes had been thinking about this question for hours. I believe it's related to human evolution. For thousands of years, we've been using tools and working with metals. Maybe this is the next step. Instead of just using tools, we're learning to bond with them. Bond with them? Kate asked. Think about it, Dr. Hayes continued. Humans are the only species we know of that can transform raw materials into complex machines. We've been doing it for so long that maybe our blood has developed this ability to enhance metals. Tom stood up and walked over to the transformed wall section. When he placed his hand against it, the entire area lit up like a control panel. I can sense the ship's systems through this, he said with wonder. I know where every damaged component is located, and I can feel what needs to be repaired. Mike's eyes widened. That's impossible. How can you interface with the ship's computer through metal? It's not the computer, Tom replied. It's the metal itself. It's become some kind of bridge between human consciousness and machine systems. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. This discovery could change everything for humanity, but it also made him think about their recent encounter with the Vorthak. Do you think the aliens detected what happened? He asked. Definitely, Mike said. When the metal transformed, it released massive amounts of energy. Their sensors would have picked up readings unlike anything they've ever seen. Meanwhile, light years away, General Crix stood in the command center of his flagship. He was studying reports from the encounter with the human vessel, and what he read disturbed him greatly. Admiral Thex, he said into his communication device, I need to speak with you immediately about the human contact. The screen activated to show Admiral Thex, a larger and more intimidating Vorthak with scars covering his face. What is it, General? I heard you let a primitive human ship escape. Sir, they are not primitive, Crix replied. During our engagement, their vessel displayed technology beyond our understanding. Our sensors detected energy readings that should be impossible for a ship of that size. Admiral Thex's forearms moved restlessly. Explain. When we damaged their hull, it repaired itself instantly. Not with patches or external systems, but the metal itself flowed back together like living tissue. The energy signature suggested their entire ship had been transformed into something our science cannot explain. Are you certain of this, Admiral? Thex's voice carried a warning tone. I have reviewed the sensor data multiple times, Crix said. Sir, I believe humans possess biomechanical integration capabilities that could threaten our empire's technological advantage. Admiral Thex was quiet for a long moment. The Vorthak Empire had ruled this section of the galaxy for over 1,000 years because of their superior technology. The idea that a newly discovered species might possess abilities they didn't understand was deeply troubling. Gather a full battle fleet, Admiral Thex finally ordered. We will capture these humans and study their technology. If they truly possess such capabilities, we must control them before other species learn of their existence. Back on the horizon, Alex gathered his crew in the main meeting room. The discovery about human blood and steel had given them hope, but also raised many questions about their future. We need to get this information back to Earth, Alex said. If what we've discovered is true, it could revolutionize human space travel. But first, we need to survive long enough to make it home, Kate pointed out. Those aliens aren't going to forget about us. Dr. Hayes looked around the room at her fellow crew members. We should run more tests. If Tom's blood can transform small sections of the ship, what would happen if we applied this process to larger areas? Tom flexed his injured arm. I'm willing to try if it means getting us home safely. Let's be careful, Alex warned. We don't fully understand what we're dealing with yet. But even as he spoke, Alex could feel that their lives had changed forever. They were no longer just human explorers lost in space. They had become something new, something that even they didn't fully understand yet. Admiral Thex's massive warship Devastator led a fleet of 30 Vorthak vessels through hyperspace toward the coordinates where the human ship had last been detected. The Admiral's 6 eyes studied tactical displays showing the positions of his fleet, the most powerful force the Vorthak Empire had assembled in decades. Sir, we are approaching the target zone, reported Captain Vex from the navigation station. All ships are ready for combat. Admiral Thex's scarred face showed no emotion. Good. These humans will not escape again. Their biomechanical technology will belong to the Vorthak Empire. In the asteroid field, the horizon had undergone remarkable changes over the past 3 days. What had started as a small repair with Tom Parker's blood had grown into something incredible. More crew members had volunteered to contribute their blood to transform different sections of the ship. Commander Alex Reed walked through corridors that no longer looked entirely human-made. The walls had a smooth, organic quality that seemed to pulse with life. Thin lines of blue light ran along the metal surfaces like veins carrying energy throughout the ship. Status report, Alex said as he entered the bridge. Chief Engineer Mike Stone turned from his station, his face showing amazement even after days of witnessing the changes. Sir, the ship's power efficiency has increased by 400%. The hull can now repair itself automatically, and our speed capabilities have doubled. Dr. Lisa Hayes looked up from her medical station, which had also been transformed by contact with human blood. The integration is accelerating. The ship seems to be learning from each modification we make. Navigator Kate Morgan placed her hand on her transformed control panel. Immediately, streams of data flowed through her mind as she connected directly with the ship's navigation systems. I can sense hyperspace routes that our old computers couldn't detect, she said with wonder. It's like the ship is showing me shortcuts through space itself. Tom Parker, his arm now fully healed thanks to the ship's new abilities, monitored the engineering systems through direct contact with the metal walls. Something's coming, he said suddenly. The ship is detecting multiple contacts approaching. Our position. Alex felt his stomach drop. The Vorthak? Has to be, Kate said, her hand still connected to the navigation controls. 31 ships, all heavily armed. They'll be here in less than an hour. Dr. Hayes ran calculations on her transformed computer system. Against those odds, even with our improvements, we don't stand a chance in conventional combat. Alex looked around at his crew. They had all changed during the past few days, becoming something more than they had been before. Their connection to the ship made them work as a single unit in ways that seemed impossible. Maybe we don't need conventional combat, he said slowly. Tom, how much of the ship has been transformed? About 60%, Tom replied. But sir, if we could transform the remaining sections, that would require a lot more blood, Dr. Hayes warned. More than we can safely give. Mike stepped forward. What if we don't have a choice? If those aliens capture us, they'll study our technology and use it against other humans. One by one, the crew members nodded their agreement. They understood the risks, but they also understood what was at stake. All right, Alex said. Let's do this, but carefully. We need to stay conscious enough to fight. Over the next 30 minutes, each crew member contributed more blood to transform the remaining sections of the horizon. As the final areas changed, something extraordinary happened. The ship's consciousness seemed to awaken fully. Alex could feel the ship's awareness in his mind. It knew every system, every weapon, every structural component. More than that, it could anticipate what was needed before any human could think of it. Fleet contact in 10 minutes, Kate announced, though she no longer needed to look at screens to know this information. The Vorthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace in a perfect attack formation. Admiral Thex studied the sensor readings of the human ship and frowned. The energy signatures were even stronger than General Crix had reported. "What is that thing?" Captain Vex asked, staring at the main screen. The Horizon no longer looked like the simple exploration vessel it had once been. Its hull flowed and shifted like liquid metal, constantly changing shape. Sections of the ship seemed to grow and shrink as needed, and the entire vessel pulsed with blue energy. "It doesn't matter what it looks like," Admiral Thex said. "Surround it, full weapons power." The Vorthak ships moved into position, completely encircling the transformed human vessel. Their plasma cannons charged up, ready to disable the ship without destroying it completely. "Fire," Admiral Thex commanded. Dozens of energy bolts struck the horizon from all directions, but instead of causing damage, something incredible happened. The ship's hull absorbed the energy, storing it and redirecting it to strengthen its own systems. "Impossible," Captain Vex whispered. "Their ship is feeding on our weapons." Inside the Horizon, Alex and his crew worked as a single organism. They didn't need to speak or give orders. Each person knew instinctively what needed to be done. Kate manipulated the ship's movement through pure thought, making it dance between enemy attacks with impossible grace. Mike directed power to weapon systems that the ship was creating in real time. Dr. Hayes monitored the crew's health while simultaneously analyzing enemy weaknesses. Tom, as the first to bond with the ship, had become something like its voice. "The ship wants to show them what we can do," he said. The Horizon suddenly stopped moving and began to change shape dramatically. Sections of its hull extended outward, forming weapon pods that hadn't existed moments before. Energy gathered at these new weapons, but it wasn't the simple laser technology humans had used before. "What are they doing?" Admiral Thex demanded, as his sensors registered power levels beyond anything the Vorthak had ever encountered. The human ship fired its new weapons. Beams of concentrated energy struck 3 Vorthak vessels simultaneously. But these weren't ordinary weapons. The energy seemed to infect the alien ship's metal, causing their hulls to buckle and twist in ways that defied physics. "Retreat," one of the Vorthak captains shouted over the communication system. "Their weapons are destroying our molecular structure." But Admiral Thex was too proud to run. All ships concentrated fire on their command section. The entire Vorthak fleet focused their attacks on what they thought was the Horizon's bridge. The energy impacts were massive, creating explosions that should have vaporized any normal ship. Instead, the Horizon seemed to grow stronger. Its hull absorbed the damage and immediately began adapting. New armor formations appeared where the attacks had been heaviest, and weapon systems multiplied across its surface. "Sir," Captain Vex said, his voice shaking, "their ship is learning from our attacks. Every time we hit them, they become more resistant to that type of damage." Alex felt the ship's consciousness merge more deeply with his own mind. Through this connection, he understood what the Vorthak were thinking, what their next moves would be, and how to counter them. The Horizon launched a new type of attack. Instead of energy weapons, it released clouds of microscopic particles that had been created from the transformed steel. These particles attached themselves to the Vorthak ships and began converting their hulls into the same responsive metal that made up the human vessel. "They're taking control of our ships," a Vorthak captain screamed as his vessel's controls stopped responding to his commands. Admiral Thex watched in horror as 5 of his ships began changing, their hulls flowing and reshaping themselves. What kind of beings are these humans? The answer came not from his crew but from the transformed ships themselves. The converted vessels turned their weapons on the remaining Vorthak fleet, firing with precision that no organic mind could achieve. "Retreat," Admiral Thex finally ordered. "All ships emergency hyperspace jump." As the surviving Vorthak vessels fled, Alex and his crew felt the ship's satisfaction. They had not just won a battle. They had shown the galaxy something entirely new. "What have we become?" Dr. Hayes asked quietly. Alex looked around at his crew, all of them connected to the ship in ways they were still learning to understand. "I think we've become what humans were always meant to be among the stars." Admiral Thex's remaining fleet regrouped at the edge of the solar system, their ships damaged and their crews terrified. The Admiral stared at the tactical display showing only 18 vessels remaining from his original force of 31. In a single battle, they had lost nearly half their fleet to one human ship. "Send a message to the High Command," Admiral Thex ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "Tell them we need reinforcements. Many reinforcements." Captain Vex looked up. From his station, confusion clear in his 4 yellow eyes. "Sir, what do we tell them about what happened?" Admiral Thex thought for a moment. How could he explain that human blood could transform metal into living weapons? How could he describe ships that learned and adapted during combat? "Tell them the humans possess technology beyond our understanding," he said finally, "and that we may have made a terrible mistake by attacking them." Meanwhile, aboard the Horizon, the transformation was accelerating beyond anything the crew had imagined possible. The ship no longer looked anything like the vessel that had left Earth months ago. Its hull flowed like liquid, constantly changing, shape based on the needs of the moment. Commander Alex Reed stood in what had once been the bridge, though it no longer resembled any human-built control room. The walls, floor, and ceiling had merged into a single organic-looking space that pulsed, with soft blue light. Control panels had been replaced by direct neural connections that responded to thought alone. "Status report," Alex said, though he already knew the answer through his connection to the ship. Navigator Kate Morgan floated in the center of the room, her body surrounded by tendrils of transformed metal that connected her directly to the ship's navigation systems. "We've absorbed the technology from the 5 Vorthak ships we converted," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. "Our capabilities have increased exponentially." Chief Engineer Mike Stone was no longer at a traditional station. Instead, he had merged partially with the ship's engineering systems, his consciousness spread throughout the vessel's network. "The ship is growing new sections on its own," he reported. "It's creating weapons and systems that we never designed." Dr. Lisa Hayes studied readings that appeared directly in her mind rather than on screens. "Our crew's physiology is changing too. We're becoming more efficient, stronger, and our minds are processing information faster than should be humanly possible." Tom Parker, who had been the first to bond with the ship, had changed the most. His skin had taken on a slight metallic sheen, and he could interface with any system on the ship through touch alone. "The ship is trying to tell us something," he said. "It wants to go home." "Home?" Alex asked. "You mean Earth?" "No," Tom replied, his eyes glowing with the same blue light as the ship's systems. "It wants to find other ships like itself, other human vessels that can be transformed." Alex felt a chill despite the warm atmosphere of the transformed bridge. "Are you saying the ship wants to spread this change to other human ships?" "Not wants," Tom corrected. "Needs. This is how we're supposed to evolve. The ship understands, something we don't yet." Before Alex could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the vessel, but these weren't the harsh electronic warnings of their old systems. Instead, the ship communicated danger through gentle pulses of light and direct thoughts shared with the crew. "Multiple fleets approaching," Kate announced. "Not just Vorthak. I'm detecting ships from at least 4 different alien species." The main display, which was now a 3-dimensional hologram that appeared in the air, showed dozens of vessels converging on their position. The Galactic Council had mobilized a combined fleet to deal with what they saw as a new threat to their established order. "Incoming transmission," Mike reported. A figure appeared in the holographic display. It was humanoid but clearly alien, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. "I am Counselor Wrath of the Galactic Council," the being said. "You will surrender immediately and submit to examination. Your technology poses a threat to galactic stability." Alex stepped forward, though his movement caused ripples of light to flow through the ship's organic walls. "We are peaceful explorers. We have no intention of threatening anyone. Your ship has already demonstrated its ability to convert other vessels to your cause," Counselor Wrath replied. "This cannot be allowed to spread. Surrender now, or face the combined might of the Galactic Alliance." The transmission ended, and Alex looked around at his crew. They were no longer entirely human, but they were still his people, still his responsibility. Options? He asked. We could run, Kate suggested. The ship is faster than anything they have. Running won't solve the problem, Dr. Hayes pointed out. They'll just keep hunting us and eventually they'll find Earth. Tom placed his hand against the nearest wall and the ship's consciousness flowed through his mind. The ship has another idea, he said. It wants to show them what we've become, but not through violence. What do you mean? Alex asked. Instead of fighting them, we demonstrate, Tom explained. We show them that this evolution isn't about conquest. It's about survival and growth. The combined alien fleet began their attack, launching hundreds of missiles and energy beams at the horizon. But the human ship had learned from its previous battle. Instead of simply absorbing the attacks, it began to dance. The vessel moved through space like a living creature, flowing around attacks rather than blocking them. When weapons did hit, the ship used the energy to fuel rapid transformations, growing new sections and capabilities in real time. Impossible, whispered Admiral Kex of the Zentari fleet. How can a ship move like that? It's not just a ship anymore, replied General Voss of the Altarian forces. Look at the energy readings. That thing is alive. The horizon began to emit clouds of the same microscopic particles it had used against the Vorthak ships. But instead of trying to convert the alien vessels, it used the particles to create a massive holographic display in space. The display showed the history of the human crew's transformation. It demonstrated how the process worked, how it enhanced, rather than replaced the crew's humanity, and how it could be used for exploration and peaceful purposes rather than conquest. They're trying to communicate, Counselor Rath realized as he watched the display aboard his flagship. The hologram showed possible futures where the technology could be used to explore distant galaxies, to build ships that could survive in the harshest environments, and to create true partnerships between organic life and advanced technology. But not all the alien commanders were convinced. Admiral Zek of the Mordian Empire saw only a threat to his people's way of life. It doesn't matter what they claim, he growled. Destroy them before they can spread this infection to other species. His fleet opened fire with their most powerful weapons, planet-killer beams that should have vaporized anything in their path. The horizon absorbed the massive energy discharge and used it to undergo its most dramatic transformation yet. The ship split into multiple sections, each one taking unspecialized functions. Some became pure energy. Others remained physical but changed their molecular structure to something beyond current understanding of matter. The crew, still connected through the ship's consciousness, experienced this transformation as an expansion of their own beings. We are still human. Alex's voice echoed across all communication channels, reaching every ship in the alien fleet. But we are also more than we were. This is not conquest. This is evolution. The transformed sections of the horizon rejoined into a single vessel, but it was now something that defied classification. It existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that the alien sensors couldn't detect. Several alien captains, overwhelmed by what they had witnessed, ordered their ships to retreat. Others continued fighting, but their weapons had no effect on a ship that could shift its existence between different states of reality. The battle ended not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. The surviving alien commanders realized they were facing something entirely new, something that challenged everything they thought they knew about life, technology, and the nature of existence itself. As the alien fleets withdrew to regroup and report to their respective governments, Alex and his crew felt the ship's satisfaction. They had proven that their evolution was not a threat to be feared, but a new chapter in the story of intelligent life in the galaxy. But they also knew that their real journey was just beginning. 3 weeks after the battle with the combined alien fleet, emergency sessions were being held across the galaxy. On the Vorthak homeworld, Emperor Drax listened to Admiral Thex's report with growing concern. The massive alien ruler's 6 arms moved nervously as he processed the information. You're telling me that one human ship defeated multiple fleets from different species? Emperor Drax asked, his voice echoing through the throne room. "Not defeated, sir," Admiral Thex corrected. "They transcended the battle entirely. Their ship exists in ways our science cannot explain. They've moved beyond conventional space combat." Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds as the Galactic Council struggled to understand what humanity had become. The blue-skinned Counselor Wrath stood before the assembled representatives of 50 different species, each one demanding answers about the human threat. "The humans claim they are still peaceful," Counselor Wrath reported, "but their capabilities suggest they could eliminate any of our civilizations if they chose to." "Then we must strike first," declared General Mox of the Hegemony Forces, "before they can spread this technology to other human worlds." "With what?" asked Admiral Senna of the Crystalline Fleet. "Our weapons are useless against them. They absorb energy attacks and adapt to everything we throw at them." Meanwhile, the horizon was approaching Earth's solar system, but the ship that returned bore no resemblance to the vessel that had left months earlier. It had grown to 3 times its original size, its hull flowing like liquid metal that sparkled with inner light. Sections of the ship phased in and out of visible reality as it traveled through dimensions that normal physics couldn't describe. Commander Alex Reed stood in the heart of the vessel, no longer on a traditional bridge but within a sphere of living metal that responded to his thoughts. His crew were positioned throughout the ship, each one connected to different systems through the neural pathways that the transformed steel had grown. "Earth's defense systems are scanning us, Navigator," Kate Morgan reported, her consciousness spread across the ship's sensor network. "They don't recognize what we've become." Dr. Lisa Hayes, whose research station had evolved into something resembling a biological laboratory, crossed with an alien computer, monitored Earth's communications. "Military commanders are ordering us to stop and identify ourselves. They're treating us as a potential hostile." "Of course they are," Alex said sadly. "To them, we probably look like an alien invasion." Tom Parker, who had become the ship's primary interface, placed his metallic hand against the organic wall. "The ship wants to show them that we're still human," he said. "But it's also concerned about what might happen if other humans aren't ready for this change." Chief Engineer Mike Stone, his consciousness now distributed throughout the ship's growing network of systems, detected multiple human military vessels approaching their position. Earth Defense Force is mobilizing everything they have. Battleships, carriers, orbital platforms. Alex felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. They had left Earth as explorers and returned as something that might be seen as monsters. How could they prove they were still human when they themselves weren't entirely sure what they had become? "Open a communication channel," Alex ordered. "All frequencies." The horizon transmitted on every possible wavelength, reaching not just the military forces but every human settlement in the solar system. Alex's voice, enhanced by the ship's consciousness, carried a warmth and familiarity that cut through the fear. "This is Commander Alex Reed of the exploration vessel Horizon," he began. "I know we look different, but we are still human. We are still your friends, your family, your fellow explorers." On Earth's surface, billions of people watched their screens as the impossible ship hung in space. Scientists struggled to understand the readings their instruments were providing. The vessel seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its energy signature unlike anything in their databases. "Prove it," came the response from Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. "If you're really human, explain what happened to you." Alex looked around at his transformed crew, each one still recognizably the person they had been, but also something more. "We encountered alien forces that attacked us. During the battle, we discovered that human blood can transform, steal into something alive, something that bonds with us." He paused, trying to find words for an experience that went beyond normal language. "We didn't lose our humanity. We expanded it. We became partners with our technology instead of just users of it." The ship began to demonstrate, showing holographic displays of their journey. The images showed their first contact with the Vorthak, the discovery of the blood-steel reaction, and their evolution from a simple exploration vessel into something unprecedented. "The technology isn't just about warfare," Dr. Hayes added, her voice joining the transmission. It's about survival, exploration, and growth. We can travel to places no conventional ship could reach, survive in conditions that would destroy normal vessels. On Earth, reaction was mixed. Some saw the horizon as humanity's next evolutionary step. Others viewed it as a dangerous aberration that threatened to change their species forever. President Williams of the Earth Union addressed her cabinet in an emergency session. What are the implications if this technology spreads? Unknown, replied Science Advisor Dr. Park. But based on what we're seeing, it could revolutionize space travel, colonization, even our understanding of consciousness itself. Or it could turn us into something that's no longer human, countered Military Advisor General Torres. We need to consider containment protocols. The debate was interrupted by an urgent message from the deep space monitoring stations. Multiple alien fleets detected approaching the solar system, the operator reported. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Admiral Chen immediately contacted the horizon. Commander Reed, our sensors show hostile forces approaching Earth. Are they here because of you? Alex felt the ship's consciousness analyzing the incoming fleets. Yes, he admitted. The galactic powers see us as a threat. They're coming to destroy us before we can spread this technology. Then you've brought war to our doorstep, General Torres accused over the open channel. No, Alex replied firmly. We've brought evolution, but that evolution comes with challenges. The horizon began to change again. Sections of its hull reshaping themselves into configurations that human engineers had never imagined. We can protect Earth, Tom said, his voice carrying the authority of the ship's consciousness. But only if humanity is willing to accept what we've become. What are you asking? President Williams inquired. Allow us to share this technology with other human ships, Alex explained. Create a fleet that can defend not just Earth but all human worlds. We can explore the galaxy as partners with our machines instead of slaves to them. The debate that followed was fierce. Some argued that the technology was too dangerous, that it would fundamentally change what it meant to be human. Others insisted that without it, humanity would be defenseless against the advanced alien civilizations that now saw them as a threat. As the alien fleets drew closer, the decision was made. 3 volunteer ships from Earth's Defense Force docked with the horizon. Their crews, understanding the risks, allowed their blood to transform their vessels' steel hulls. The transformation was faster this time, as the horizon had learned to guide the process. Within hours, 4 evolved ships hung in Earth's orbit, their hulls gleaming with organic light, their crews enhanced by neural connections to living metal. When the alien fleets arrived, they found not a single unusual vessel, but the beginning of a new kind of spacefaring civilization. The battle that followed wasn't won through superior firepower, but through demonstration of humanity's new symbiotic relationship with technology. General Crix, leading the Vorthak contingent, watched in amazement as the human ships moved through, space like living creatures adapting and evolving in real time to meet each challenge. Perhaps, he transmitted to his fleet, we have been thinking about this wrong. These humans haven't become our enemies. They've become something we never imagined possible. The message he sent to Emperor Drax was simple but profound, requesting permission to negotiate alliance rather than conquest. The humans may have found the key to the next stage of galactic evolution. As the alien fleets withdrew to consider this new paradigm, Alex and his crew looked toward the stars with new understanding. They were no longer just human explorers or alien adversaries. They had become bridges between organic life and advanced technology, showing the galaxy that evolution didn't mean abandoning one's nature, but expanding it beyond previous limitations. The age of humanity among the stars had truly begun. The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the Alliance flagship Iron Fang. General Rake's scaled hands gripped the command chair as his yellow eyes stared at the tactical display. The massive shape on the screen made his blood run cold, even though he had seen it many times before. The Devastator. How many ships this time? Rake asked, his voice low and rough like grinding stone. 17 of ours, sir, replied his communications officer, a thin creature with blue skin and 4 arms. The enemy has only 1 ship, as always. Rake's claws scraped against the metal armrest. 17 ships destroyed by a single vessel. It seemed impossible, but the Devastator had been doing the impossible for 3 years now. The kilometer-long dreadnought moved through space like death itself, crushing entire fleets without taking serious damage. Admiral Vex. Rake whispered the name like a curse. The Keith Empire's greatest commander had earned his nickname, the Butcher of Worlds, by destroying everything in his path. 17 star systems had fallen to his ship, billions of lives lost, entire civilizations wiped out. Commander Nova's crystalline form appeared on the main screen, her body glowing with soft blue light. She was calling from her ship Frostblade, positioned 3 sectors away. Her people came from Glacialis, where the ice storms could freeze metal in seconds. "General Rake," Nova's voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "The scouts report the Devastator is moving toward the Helix Nebula. This could be our chance." Rake nodded slowly. The Helix Nebula was perfect for an ambush. The gas clouds would hide their ships until the last moment. They had been planning this attack for months. "How many ships do we have ready?" he asked. 43 vessels from 7 death worlds, Nova replied. The Fire Warriors from Infernus, Ice Fighters from Glacialis, the Storm Riders from Tempest, Prime. Our best warriors, all of them. The Death World Alliance was desperate. Every species in their group came from planets that tried to kill them every day. Infernus had volcanoes that erupted without warning. Glacialis had ice storms that lasted for months. Tempest Prime had hurricanes that could lift mountains. These worlds created the toughest fighters in the galaxy, but even Death World warriors were dying against the Devastator. Rake stood up, his 7-foot frame casting a shadow across the bridge. His people evolved on Infernus, where they fought giant fire beasts and survived in caves filled with poisonous gas. His scales could resist temperatures that would melt most metals. His claws could cut through solid rock. None of that mattered against Admiral Vex and his ship. "Send the signal," Rake ordered. "All ships move to attack positions. Today we end this." The Alliance fleet moved through space like a pack of hunters. Each ship was different, built by species that survived on worlds where weakness meant death. The Iron Fang looked like a massive tooth, covered in armor plates and weapon ports. The Frostblade was sleek and sharp, designed to cut through enemy formations. Ships from other worlds looked like claws, hammers, and blades. They all had one thing in common. They were built for war. The Helix Nebula glowed with colors that hurt to look at. Pink and purple gas clouds twisted through space, hiding deadly radiation and gravity wells. Most species avoided this area, but Death World fighters were used to dangerous places. "Enemy contact," announced the sensor officer. His tentacles moved quickly over the controls. "The Devastator is entering the nebula from the far side." On the main screen, the enemy ship appeared like a nightmare made real. The Devastator was a kilometer long and 300 meters wide. Its hull was black as space, covered with weapon batteries and shield generators. Red lights glowed along its sides like the eyes of a demon. "By the burning moons of Infernus," whispered someone on the bridge. Rake felt his warriors' fear through the comm system. Even soldiers from Death Worlds could be afraid. The Devastator had that effect on everyone. "All ships, this is General Rake," he spoke into his communicator. "Remember why we fight. This monster has destroyed our colonies, killed our families, turned entire worlds to ash. Today we make it pay." Cheers and war cries came back through the comm. The Fire Warriors roared like the volcanoes of their home. The Ice Fighters sang their death songs. The Storm Riders howled like the winds of Tempest Prime. "Attack Formation 7, Rake ordered. Hit them from all sides at once." The Alliance ships moved like a closing fist. They had practiced this formation 100 times. Ships would attack from above, below, and both sides. The Devastator was powerful, but it was still just one ship against 43. "Weapons ready," called the weapons officer. "Fire on my command," Rake said. The Alliance fleet opened fire at the same moment. Plasma cannons, laser batteries, and missile launchers all fired together. The space around the Devastator lit up like a small sun as hundreds of weapons struck its shields. For a moment, Rake thought they had won. The enemy ship disappeared in a ball of light and explosions. Then the Devastator fired back. The return fire was perfect. Not a single shot was wasted. Each beam and missile found its target with deadly accuracy. 3 Alliance ships exploded in the first volley. 5 more lost their shields and started spinning out of control. How is that possible? Nova's voice crackled over the comm. Our sensors showed their shields were down. Admiral Vex's voice cut through all other communications, cold and calm. Deathworld animals, you fight like the beasts you are. No strategy, no intelligence, just fury and desperation. The Devastator moved through the Alliance formation like a shark through a school of fish. Its weapons fired in perfect patterns, each shot planned to cause maximum damage. The enemy ship's shields seemed to absorb everything the Alliance threw at them. More ships died. The firestorm from Infernus exploded when its reactor was hit. The ice hammer from Glacialis broke in half, its crew screaming over the comm before the signal went dead. Pull back, Rake ordered, but it was too late. The Devastator had moved into the perfect position. Its main guns, massive weapons that could crack moons, turned toward the center of the Alliance formation. The blast lit up the entire nebula. When the light faded, 12 more Alliance ships were gone. Retreat! All ships retreat! Rake shouted. The surviving Alliance vessels fled in different directions, hoping to confuse their enemies' targeting systems. The Devastator could have chased. Them could have finished them all. Instead, it just watched them run. Admiral Vex's voice followed them into the darkness. Tell your leaders, animals. Tell them that Admiral Vex is coming for all of them. The Keth Empire will rule this galaxy, and your pathetic alliance will burn. Hours later, the survivors gathered at their secret base on asteroid Omega-7. Of the 43 ships that attacked the Devastator, only 16 made it back. Almost 2,000 warriors were dead. Rake sat in the command center, staring at the casualty reports. His strongest fighters, his best ships, his carefully planned attack, all useless against one enemy vessel. Sir, called the communications officer. Long-range sensors are picking up something strange. What now? Rake asked, too tired to care. A ship, sir, coming from the unexplored regions. The signal is unusual. Commander Nova's image appeared on the screen. General, are you seeing this? The ship appears to be from a previously unknown world. Rake looked at the sensor data. The approaching vessel was small, primitive-looking compared to the advanced ships of the Alliance or the Keth Empire. Its technology seemed basic, almost crude. What world could have built such a thing? Nova wondered. The communications officer looked up from his console. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown ship. They're requesting permission to dock. They say they're from a planet called Earth. Rake had never heard of Earth. Neither had anyone else in the command center. But after their defeat at the hands of the Devastator, he was willing to listen to anyone. Grant them permission, he said. At this point, what do we have to lose? As the strange ship approached their base, Rake wondered if these newcomers could possibly help where the galaxy's greatest Deathworld warriors had failed. It seemed impossible. But then again, so did defeating the Devastator. The human ship explorer looked nothing like the warships General Rake was used to seeing. It was small, maybe 200 meters long, with a simple design that seemed almost childlike compared to the deadly vessels of the Deathworld Alliance. The hull was white and blue, with strange markings that read United Earth Exploration Fleet in letters that hurt to look at. Captain Blake stepped off the transport shuttle onto the docking bay of asteroid Omega-7. He was tall for his species, with brown hair and calm blue eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. Behind him came 2 other humans, a woman with short black hair carrying some kind of scanning device and a younger man with quick eyes that kept moving from place to place. General Rake met them at the airlock, his massive scaled form towering over the 3 humans. The humans barely came up to his chest, and they looked so fragile that a strong wind might break them. Commander Nova's crystalline form stood beside him, glowing with curious blue light. "I am General Rake of the Deathworld Alliance," he said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "You are the humans from Earth?" Captain Blake stepped forward without fear, even though he was looking up at a 7-foot lizard with claws that could cut through steel. "I'm Captain Blake, commander of the exploration vessel Explorer. These are Dr. Rivers, our science officer, and Lieutenant Torres, our tactical officer." Dr. Rivers smiled and raised her scanning device. "Fascinating. Your species evolved from reptilian ancestors, didn't you? And you..." She turned to Commander Nova. "Are you silicon-based? The crystal formation is beautiful." Commander Nova's form flickered with surprise. Most species were either afraid or respectful when they first met her. This human seemed genuinely excited. "You are very small," General Rake observed. "And your ship is primitive. What kind of death world could have produced such fragile beings?" "Lieutenant," Torres laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the metal corridor. "Fragile? Sir, you should see Earth during hurricane season, or when the volcanoes in the Ring of Fire decide to wake up, or when the glaciers start moving. Your world has all of these dangers?" Nova asked, her voice chiming with interest. "Oh, that's just the natural disasters," Dr. Rivers said, still scanning everything around her. "Wait until you hear about the wars." General Rake led them to the main briefing room, where holographic displays showed the damage from their recent battle. Broken ships, casualty lists, tactical analyses, all proof of their failure against the Devastator. "This is our enemy," Rake explained, bringing up an image of the massive dreadnought. The Devastator, commanded by Admiral Vex of the Keth Empire. For 3 years, this one ship has destroyed everything we send against it. Captain Blake studied the display with intense focus. His eyes moved over every detail: the ship's design, its weapon placements, its shield generators. "How many times have you fought it?" "7 major battles," Commander Nova replied. "Each time we lose more ships than we can afford." "And it fights the same way every time?" Lieutenant Torres asked, leaning forward in his chair. "What do you mean?" Rake asked. "Does Admiral Vex use the same tactics? Same formations? Same attack patterns?" Nova's crystal form pulsed with confusion. "He is a brilliant commander. His tactics are always perfect." "Perfect," Torres repeated, glancing at Captain Blake. "Sir, can we see recordings of the battles?" For the next 4 hours, the humans studied every piece of data the Alliance had on the Devastator. They watched battle recordings, analyzed weapon patterns, and examined shield configurations. The Alliance commanders watched them with growing confusion. Dr. Rivers pointed at energy readings on her scanner. "The shield rotation follows a mathematical sequence. See? Every 47 seconds, there's a gap in the lower port quadrant that lasts for 1.3 seconds. But that gap is too small to matter," Nova protested. "No weapon can be fired with that precision." "Human weapons can," Torres said quietly. He was running calculations on a small device. "Captain, the firing patterns aren't random either. Look at this." He showed them a display covered with numbers and charts. "Admiral Vex fires his weapons in optimal patterns based on maximum damage algorithms. But algorithms are predictable once you understand the math." General Rake's claws scraped against the table. "You think you can defeat the Devastator with mathematics?" "Not defeat," Captain Blake said. "Understand, in human military history we learned something important. No matter how good a commander is, if they rely on perfect tactics, they become predictable." "Your species has military history?" Rake asked, surprised. "But you look so peaceful." Dr. Rivers laughed, but there was no humor in it. "General, humans have been fighting wars for over 10,000 years. We've had more wars than we can count. Wars with swords, wars with guns, wars with nuclear weapons that could destroy entire continents. We fought wars before we left our planet," Torres added. "We fought wars while exploring space. We're probably the only species that brought weapons on our first exploration mission just in case." Commander Nova's form dimmed with shock. "You fight your own species?" "All the time," Blake said calmly. "Humans don't just adapt to hostile environments. We adapt to hostile enemies who can think, plan, and try to kill us. Every human military officer studies thousands of battles fought by other humans. He gestured to the display showing the Devastator. Admiral Vex is good, but he fights like he's facing natural disasters, predictable threats that respond the same way every time. He's never fought an enemy that studies his patterns and adapts. The room fell silent. The Alliance commanders had never thought about war this way. They fought with courage, with strength, with the fury born from surviving death worlds. But they had never fought with the cold calculation that the humans were describing. "You want to join our next attack?" General Rake asked finally. "If you'll have us," Blake replied. "But we do things differently than you're used to." "Different how?" Lieutenant Torres stood up and walked to the tactical display. "You attack with courage and strength. That's honorable but predictable. Humans attack with deception, misdirection, and exploitation of enemy weaknesses. That sounds dishonorable," Nova said uncertainly. "Honor doesn't matter if you're dead," Dr. Rivers said bluntly. "On Earth, we have a saying, all's fair in love and war. When survival is at stake, you use every advantage you can get." General Rake was quiet for a long moment. His people valued honor above all else. The idea of fighting with tricks and deception felt wrong. But then he thought about the thousands of warriors who had died fighting the Devastator with honor and courage. "What do you need?" he asked. "Complete tactical data on every engagement," Torres said immediately. "Weapon specifications, shield frequencies, movement patterns, everything you have." "And we need to modify our ship," Blake added. "Dr. Rivers has some ideas about disrupting the Devastator's shield harmonics." "You can do that with your primitive technology?" Rake asked skeptically. Dr. Rivers grinned. "General human primitive technology includes quantum computers, plasma weapons, and gravity manipulators. We just don't make our ships look scary. We make them work." Over the next day, the humans worked with Alliance engineers to modify the Explorer. They installed new sensors, upgraded the weapon systems, and added something they called adaptive targeting computers. The Alliance engineers were amazed by human technology that seemed simple, but was incredibly advanced. "Your weapons are more powerful than they appear," Nova observed. "Human philosophy," Blake explained. "Don't look dangerous until you need to be dangerous. Let your enemies underestimate you." Lieutenant Torres spent hours studying the Devastator's battle patterns, making notes and calculations. "I've got it," he announced finally. "The ship's movement follows predictable optimization curves. If we can force Admiral Vex into a specific tactical situation, I can predict exactly where he'll position his ship." "And then?" Rake asked. "Then we exploit the shield gap that Dr. Rivers found, and we target the one weakness every ship has," Torres said with a cold smile. "Which is?" "Power coupling junction between the main reactor and the shield generators. Hit it at the right angle with the right frequency, and even the Devastator goes dark." General Rake felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. These strange, small humans with their quiet voices and calculating minds might actually have a chance against the galaxy's most feared weapon. "When do we attack?" he asked. Captain Blake checked his watch, a simple device that looked nothing like the complex chronometers used by other species. "Admiral Vex destroyed those 17 ships 2 days ago. Based on his pattern, he'll be looking for his next target within 72 hours. We intercept him in the Crimson Sector." "You sound very confident," Commander Nova said. "Confidence is what happens when you understand your enemy better than they understand themselves," Blake replied. "Admiral Vex thinks he's fighting Deathworld, animals. He's about to learn that humans are something very different." As the Alliance fleet prepared for another battle with the Devastator, General Rake watched the humans make their final preparations. They moved with calm precision, showing no fear of the coming fight. It was unlike anything he had seen from Deathworld warriors. Maybe, just maybe, these humans from Earth would succeed where the galaxy's greatest fighters had failed. The hunt for the Devastator was about to begin. The Alliance fleet moved through space toward the Crimson Sector like a pack of wounded predators seeking revenge. General Rake commanded 30 ships this time, all that remained after their last defeat. The human's small ship Explorer followed, at the back of the formation, looking fragile and out of place among the armored warships. "Contact," announced the sensor officer aboard the Iron Fang. "The Devastator is emerging from behind the gas giant Crimson Prime." On the main screen, Admiral Vex's massive dreadnought appeared like death itself, a kilometer of black metal bristling with weapons, moving with the confidence of a predator that had never truly been challenged. General Rake felt his warriors' fear through the comm channels. Even after all their preparation, the sight of the Devastator still made veteran fighters from Death Worlds whisper prayers to their gods. "All ships, attack formation Delta," Rake ordered. "Remember the plan. Draw their fire, create openings for the humans." But Admiral Vex had learned from their previous encounters. Instead of waiting for the Alliance to attack, the Devastator struck first. The enemy ship emerged from behind Crimson Prime with all weapons firing. Plasma beams and quantum torpedoes lit up space as the Devastator caught half the Alliance fleet. In a devastating crossfire, 3 ships exploded immediately. 2 more lost power and began drifting helplessly. "He's changed his tactics." Commander Nova's voice crackled over the comm from her ship Frostblade. "This isn't the same pattern as before." Admiral Vex's cold voice cut through all communications. "Did you think I wouldn't learn from our last dance, General Rake? I know how Deathworld animals think. You're predictable in your unpredictability." The Devastator moved through the Alliance formation like a shark through bleeding fish. Its weapons fired with perfect accuracy, each shot calculated for maximum destruction. The enemy ship's shields absorbed everything the Alliance threw at them without even flickering. General Rake watched in horror as his carefully planned attack fell apart. The firestorm exploded when its reactor was hit. The icebreaker spun out of control, its hull cracked open like an egg. More ships died every second. But aboard the Explorer, the humans were doing something different. They weren't fighting, they were watching. Lieutenant Torres sat at his tactical station, recording everything. His fingers moved quickly over the controls, analyzing weapon patterns, shield rotations, and movement vectors. Dr. Rivers monitored energy readings, watching how the Devastator's systems responded to different attacks. "There," Torres pointed at his screen. "Did you see that? When the Storm Rider hit their port shield with plasma cannons, the energy feedback caused a 0.3-second delay in the starboard weapon rotation." Captain Blake nodded, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. "The ship's too perfect. Every system is optimized, which means they're all connected. Create a feedback loop in one system, and it affects all the others," Dr. Rivers finished. "Captain, I'm reading something interesting. Their shield harmonics aren't random. They're following a mathematical progression. Fibonacci sequence, modified for quantum resonance. Can you disrupt it? Give me 2 minutes to recalibrate our weapons." Meanwhile, the battle was going badly for the Alliance. More ships exploded under the Devastator's relentless assault. General Rake's voice roared over the comm, ordering retreat, but Admiral Vex wasn't letting them escape this time. "Run, little animals," Vex taunted. "Run back to your caves and holes. The Keth Empire will find you all eventually." The Devastator positioned itself to block the Alliance escape route, its massive bulk cutting off their path to safety. This was it, the end of the Deathworld Alliance. In minutes, they would all be dead. That's when Captain Blake's voice came over the comm channel. "General Rake, this is Captain Blake. Request permission to take point position." The bridge of the Iron Fang fell silent. Everyone stared at the communication console as if it had spoken an alien language. "Captain Blake," Rake said slowly, "did you just ask to move to the front of the formation?" "Yes, sir. We're ready to engage the enemy." Commander Nova's crystal form flickered with disbelief on the screen. "Captain, that's suicide. Your ship is tiny compared to the Devastator." "Sometimes small is better," Blake replied calmly. "David versus Goliath, as we say on Earth." General Rake looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was gone or disabled. The Devastator was moving in for the kill. At this point, what did they have to lose? "Permission granted," he said. "May your gods protect you, humans." "We don't need gods," Blake said. "We have math." The Explorer suddenly accelerated past the fleeing Alliance ships, heading straight toward the Devastator. The small human vessel looked like a minnow swimming toward a whale. Admiral Vex's laughter echoed across all comm frequencies. Magnificent. The primitive species wants to die gloriously. I will grant you a quick death, humans. The Devastator's main weapons turned toward the approaching explorer. Massive plasma cannons that could vaporize a small moon locked onto the human ship. Every Alliance commander watched, expecting to see the humans die in a flash of light. The plasma cannons fired. The explorer wasn't there. The small ship had moved at the exact moment the weapons discharged, sliding sideways through space like it was dancing. The deadly beams passed harmlessly by, missing by mere meters. Impossible, Admiral Vex whispered. The Devastator fired again, and again the explorer moved at precisely the right moment. The human ship weaved through the enemy's weapon fire like it knew where every shot would be before it was fired. Because it did. Torres, talk to me, Blake said calmly as his ship performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. Pattern confirmed, Captain. The targeting system follows a predictive algorithm based on optimal firing solutions. I can calculate where they'll shoot next. Rivers? Shield harmonics disrupted and... Got it. Their port shield is operating. At 60% efficiency for the next 15 seconds. The Explorer dove toward the Devastator's port side, moving so fast it was almost a blur. The enemy ship's weapons tried to track it, but they were always one step behind. Admiral Vex's voice turned from amusement to anger. What kind of technology do these primitives have? Nothing special, Blake said over the open comm. Just 3,000 years of fighting other humans who were trying to kill us. You learn to be unpredictable when your enemy can think. The Explorer reached the Devastator's hull and fired a single shot from its modified plasma cannon. The beam struck a specific point on the enemy ship's side, a tiny junction between the main reactor and the shield generators that Dr. Rivers had identified from the energy readings. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Devastator's shields flickered and died. Its weapons stopped firing. The running lights along its hull went dark one by one as power systems cascaded into failure. Impossible, Admiral Vex said again, but his voice was no longer confident. It was afraid. Not impossible, Captain Blake replied. Just improbable. Every ship has weaknesses, Admiral. The trick is finding them. The massive dreadnought that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 years drifted powerless in space. Emergency lights flickered along its hull as backup systems tried to restart the main reactor. General Rake's voice came over the comm, filled with amazement. How? How did you do that? Lieutenant Torres answered. The ship was too perfect. General, every system was optimized for maximum efficiency, which made them all dependent on each other. Create a feedback loop in the right place and the whole network crashes, Dr. Rivers added. It's like pulling the right thread in a sweater. Everything unravels. Admiral Vex's voice crackled over the emergency channel, no longer cold and controlled. What are you? What kind of species fights like this? Captain Blake's reply was quiet, but it carried across all frequencies. We're humans, Admiral. We're the species that learn to survive by outsmarting each other. Every war we ever fought taught us something new about warfare. Your weapons, your tactics, your patterns, they're all perfect for fighting species that respond predictably to threats, Torres explained. But humans spent millennia fighting other humans. We learned to expect the unexpected. The Alliance fleet slowly moved closer to the disabled Devastator. General Rake couldn't believe what he was seeing. The galaxy's most feared warship, the vessel that had destroyed 17 star systems, was floating helpless because 3 humans in a small ship had found a weakness no one else had noticed. Prepare boarding parties, Rake ordered. We take Admiral Vex alive. As Alliance ships surrounded the powerless dreadnought, Commander Nova's voice came over the comm. Captain Blake, how did your species learn to fight this way? Blake was quiet for a moment before answering. Commander, most species in the galaxy had to learn to survive their environment. Humans had to learn to survive each other. When your enemy can think, adapt, and plan, you learn to do it better than they can. Or you die, Torres added simply. The boarding parties launched toward the Devastator as Admiral Vex's once mighty ship was taken without firing another shot. The terror of the galaxy had been defeated not by superior firepower or stronger warriors, but by three humans who understood that the most dangerous enemy wasn't the strongest. It was the smartest. As the Alliance claimed their victory, General Rake realized that everything had changed. The humans hadn't just defeated the Devastator. They had shown the galaxy a completely new way to think about warfare, and Admiral Vex, the Butcher of Worlds, was about to learn exactly how dangerous that could be. Admiral Vex sat in the detention cell aboard the Explorer, staring at the simple white walls with confusion and rage. The cell was small, clean, and completely unlike the dark torture chambers of Keth warships. Through the transparent barrier, he could see humans walking past as if capturing the galaxy's most feared commander was just another day's work. Captain Blake entered the cell area, carrying a tray with what appeared to be food and water. He set it down on the small table and sat across from the Keith Admiral. "You're feeding me?" Vex asked, his voice rough with disbelief. "Standard procedure for prisoners of war," Blake replied calmly. "Geneva Convention, Earth military law. Even enemies deserve basic dignity." Vex laughed bitterly. "Geneva Convention? You have laws about how to treat prisoners? What kind of species makes rules for warfare?" "The kind that's been fighting wars for 10,000 years, Blake said. "We learned that treating prisoners well often gets you better information than torture, and sometimes former enemies become allies." The Keth Admiral leaned back in his chair, studying the human across from him. Blake was smaller than any warrior Vex had ever met, with no visible weapons or armor. Yet this fragile-looking creature had accomplished what the galaxy's greatest fighters could not. "How?" Vex asked finally. "How did you defeat my ship? The Devastator was perfect. Its systems, its weapons, its defenses, all optimized for maximum efficiency." "That was the problem," Blake said. "Perfect systems are predictable systems. In human military history, we learned that rigid perfection creates exploitable weaknesses." Dr. Rivers entered the room, carrying her scanner and a tablet full of data. "Admiral, may I ask you something? How long have the Keth been a spacefaring species?" 3,000 years, Vex replied suspiciously. "We conquered 200 worlds in that time." "And how many wars has your species fought?" Vex looked confused. "Wars? We fought conquests. We overwhelmed primitive species with superior technology and firepower. There were no wars, only victories." Dr. Rivers exchanged a glance with Captain Blake. "That explains a lot. Captain, the Keth have never actually fought a war. They've only fought massacres." Lieutenant Torres joined them, bringing up a holographic display of battle formations. "Admiral Vex, can you tell me why you positioned your ship exactly 15.7 kilometers from the gas giant's gravity well during our last battle?" "Optimal firing position," Vex answered automatically. "Maximum weapon effectiveness while maintaining shield integrity and escape route availability." "Optimal according to what?" "Military algorithms. Mathematical calculations for perfect tactical positioning." Torres nodded. "And you always follow these algorithms?" "Of course. They ensure victory with minimum risk." "That's why we beat you," Torres said simply. "Your tactics aren't really tactics. They're mathematical formulas. Once we understood the math, we could predict everything you would do." Vex's scaled face darkened with anger. "Impossible. Keth military science is the most advanced in the galaxy. Our algorithms account for every variable, every possibility. Every possibility except an enemy that doesn't follow the rules," Blake said. "Admiral, let me tell you about human warfare." Blake stood up and began pacing the small room. "On Earth, we have a saying. No plan survives contact with the enemy. We learned that rigid tactics get you killed when your opponent can adapt. So what do humans do instead? We improvise. We adapt. We use what you would call suboptimal tactics because they're unpredictable." Blake gestured to Torres. "Show him the simulation." Torres activated his tablet, displaying a tactical scenario. This is a famous human battle called Thermopylae. 300 Spartan warriors held off an army of 100,000 Persians. Impossible, Vex said immediately. The numbers alone. They used terrain, psychology, and tactics the enemy couldn't predict, Torres continued. The Persians had perfect formations, superior numbers, and better equipment. But they lost because they couldn't adapt when their optimal tactics failed. Dr. Rivers pulled up another display. Here's another one. The Battle of Agincourt. English. Longbowmen defeated French knights who had better armor, better training, and tactical superiority. How? Mud, Blake said with a slight smile. Rain turned the battlefield into a swamp. The French followed their perfect cavalry tactics and got stuck. The English adapted and won. Vex stared at the examples, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. You're telling me that inferior forces can defeat superior ones through, what? Luck? Not luck, Blake corrected. Creativity. Adaptability. The willingness to abandon perfect tactics when they're not working. Commander Nova's crystalline form appeared on the communication screen. Captain Blake, may I join this conversation? I've been analyzing the battle data, and I have questions. Of course, Commander. Nova's form flickered as she processed what she had learned. Captain, human tactics make no logical sense. Your ship moved in patterns that were mathematically inefficient. You took risks that should have resulted in destruction, but they didn't, Torres pointed out, because Admiral Vex was expecting us to act logically. When we acted illogically, his perfect systems couldn't compensate. General Rake's voice joined the conversation through the comm. Humans, I must ask, how did your species survive fighting this way? These tactics seem chaotic. Blake sat back down, his expression becoming more serious. General, that's the key difference between human warfare and what the rest of the galaxy calls warfare. You fight natural disasters, volcanoes, ice storms, hostile environments. Those things are dangerous, but they're predictable. Humans fight other humans, Dr. Rivers added. Every human army in history was led by someone who was trying to think 3 steps ahead of their enemy. Both sides were intelligent, both sides adapted, both sides tried to predict what the other would do. So we learned to be unpredictable, Torres concluded, because predictable tactics get you killed when your enemy is as smart as you are. Admiral Vex was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, he spoke. Your species fought wars against itself? Why? Resources, territory, ideology, revenge, fear, Blake listed. Humans fought wars for the same reasons any species fights. The difference is that we fought them against opponents who could learn from their mistakes. Every war taught us something new, Dr. Rivers explained. New weapons, new tactics, new ways to think about conflict. We had to keep innovating because our enemies were innovating too. Vex leaned forward, his yellow eyes focused intently on Blake. And this is why you could defeat the Devastator? The Devastator was designed to fight predictable enemies, Blake confirmed. Species that would respond to overwhelming force with either surrender or direct confrontation. You never faced an enemy that would study your patterns and exploit them. But studying patterns takes time, Nova observed. How did you do it so quickly? Lieutenant Torres smiled. Commander, humans have been studying military patterns for thousands of years. We have entire universities dedicated to military history, strategy, and tactics. Every human officer studies hundreds of historical battles. We recognized Admiral Vex's tactical style immediately, Blake added. It was similar to several Earth commanders who relied too heavily on mathematical optimization. We knew how to counter it because we'd seen it before. Admiral Vex slumped in his chair, the weight of understanding crushing his pride. The Keth Empire, all of our victories, were against species that fought like natural disasters, Blake said gently. Brave, fierce but predictable. You never faced an enemy that fought like a chess match. What is chess? Torres brought up an image of a chessboard. It's a human game. Two players equal pieces, but victory goes to whoever can think further ahead and adapt better to their opponent's moves. You treat warfare like a game? Vex asked, horrified. We treat games like warfare, Blake corrected. Every human child learns strategy through games. By the time we're adults, thinking tactically is second nature. General Rake's voice came through the comm with a new tone, respect mixed with fear. Humans, this means every member of your species is a potential military strategist? More or less, Dr. Rivers confirmed. Humans compete with each other constantly, in sports, in business, in academics. We're always trying to outsmart each other. Commander Nova's form pulsed with realization. That's why you seemed so calm during the battle. You weren't experiencing combat for the first time. You were playing a game you'd played your entire lives. Exactly, Blake said. Admiral Vex was a master player, but he was playing by rules we'd already learned to break. Admiral Vex looked up at the humans with something that might have been respect. What happens now? Will you execute me for my crimes? That's up to the Alliance, Blake replied. But I'd like to make a suggestion. The Keth Empire will send more ships when they learn about the Devastator. You could help us prepare for them. Help you? Help the enemies who destroyed my ship? Help us end a war that doesn't need to be fought, Blake said. Admiral, you're an intelligent military mind. You could learn human tactics, adapt them to Keth strengths. Work with us instead of against us. Vex was quiet for a long moment. And if I refuse? Then you sit in a cell while other people fight and die in a war that could be ended with cooperation instead of conquest. The Keth Admiral stared at the simple meal Blake had brought him, thinking about empires and algorithms, about perfect tactics and unpredictable humans. For the first time in his life, Admiral Vex began to understand that there might be something more powerful than overwhelming force. There might be wisdom in learning from your enemies instead of simply destroying them. 3 months after the defeat of the Devastator, the news had spread across the entire galaxy like wildfire. The Keth Empire's most feared weapon had been destroyed by a small ship from an unknown world called Earth. In cantinas, trading posts, and military headquarters, beings whispered the impossible story of how 3 humans had accomplished what armies could not. General Rake stood in the new command center on asteroid Omega-7, watching displays that showed Alliance ships practicing formations they had never used before. The old tactics of individual courage and frontal assault were being replaced by something the humans called combined arms doctrine. Concentration of force at the decisive point, Lieutenant Torres explained to a group of Alliance commanders gathered around a holographic battlefield. Don't spread your ships evenly. Hit the enemy where they're weakest with everything you have. Commander Nova's crystalline form pulsed with understanding. Like an ice storm focusing on the weakest part of a mountain until it breaks. Exactly, Torres said with approval. Now who can tell me what happens after you break through their line? A young officer from Tempest Prime raised his hand. You don't stop to celebrate. You exploit the breakthrough before they can recover. Good. And why don't you pursue a retreating enemy into unknown territory? Because it might be a trap, several voices answered together. General Rake watched the lesson with amazement. In just 3 months, his officers were learning to think like the humans, always planning 3 moves ahead, always considering what the enemy might do next. Captain Blake entered the command center, followed by Dr. Rivers and Admiral Vex. The former Keth commander now wore a simple Alliance uniform instead of his black Imperial armor. It had taken weeks of careful negotiation, but Vex had agreed to share his knowledge of Keth military doctrine in exchange for learning human tactical philosophy. Report, General Rake requested. Long-range sensors have detected the Keth response. Fleet, Dr. Rivers announced, bringing up a display that made everyone in the room go quiet. 3 massive dreadnoughts appeared on the screen, each one as large as the Devastator had been. Escort vessels surrounded them like a swarm of deadly insects. The combined fleet had enough firepower to crack planets. The Annihilator, Destroyer, and Obliterator, Admiral Vex, identified them grimly. The Keth Empire's 3 remaining super dreadnoughts. They're commanded by Admirals Kane, Cross, and Stone. The best tactical minds in the Empire. How long until they reach us? Commander Nova asked. 4 days, Blake replied. They're coming straight for Earth. The Empire wants to destroy the source of their humiliation. General Rake felt the familiar weight of despair settling on his shoulders. 3 ships like the Devastator coming for revenge. Even with human tactics, how could they possibly win against such overwhelming force? How many ships do we have? He asked. 67 Alliance vessels, Torres reported, plus the human exploration fleet, another 12 ships that arrived from Earth last week. 79 ships against 3 super dreadnoughts and their escorts. Rake calculated. The odds are impossible. Admiral Vex stepped forward. General, the odds are only impossible if you fight like the old Alliance, but if you fight like humans, what do you mean? Captain Blake activated the tactical display, showing the Sol system where Earth orbited its yellow star. We're not going to meet them in open space, we're going to make them come to us on ground of our choosing. The asteroid belt, Dr. Rivers added, highlighting the region between Mars and Jupiter. Millions of rocks, ice chunks, and metal fragments. Perfect for an ambush. Lieutenant Torres brought up detailed formations. Human naval doctrine calls it defense in depth. We don't try to stop them at the edge of the system. We let them come in, then hit them from all sides when they're committed. Commander Nova studied the plan with growing excitement. Like avalanche tactics on Glacialis. Let the enemy enter the danger zone, then bring the mountain down on them. The Keth will expect us to meet them in formation, Admiral Vex explained. They'll be prepared for the kind of battle they've always fought. Fleet against fleet, strength against strength. Instead, we'll give them a dozen small battles. Blake continued. Hit-and-run attacks, false retreats, feints and diversions. Make them think they're winning while we set up the real trap. General Rake examined the battle plan with growing amazement. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Complex, layered, with backup plans for the backup plans. This could actually work. It will work, Blake said confidently, but only if everyone follows the plan exactly. No heroic charges, no individual glory. We fight as one coordinated force. The next 4 days passed in intensive preparation. Alliance ships practiced formations they had never attempted before. Human engineers worked around the clock to install new weapons and sensor systems. Most importantly, every crew member learned their specific role in the coming battle. Admiral Vex proved invaluable, explaining Keth tactical doctrine and predicting how the enemy commanders would respond to different situations. Admiral Kane will try to bull straight through your defenses, he told the assembled fleet commanders. Admiral Cross will look for flanking opportunities. Admiral Stone will hang back and provide covering fire. So we give each of them what they expect to see, Torres said, while setting up surprises they won't expect. When the Keth fleet finally arrived at the edge of the Sol system, they came with all the arrogance of an empire that had never known true defeat. The 3 super dreadnoughts moved in perfect formation, their escort vessels spread out in textbook defensive patterns. Admiral, Kane's voice boomed across all frequencies. Humans of Earth, you have interfered with the Keth Empire for the last time. Surrender now and we will make your deaths quick. Captain Blake's response was calm and measured. Admiral Kane, this is Captain Blake of the Earth Defense Force. You are not welcome in our system. Turn around and leave peacefully or face the consequences. Kane's laughter echoed through space. Face the consequences. You're primitives flying scrap metal. We will burn your pathetic world to ash. The Keth fleet accelerated toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They detected the Alliance ships scattered throughout the asteroid belt, but dismissed them as a minor nuisance. That was their first mistake. The battle began when Admiral Cross's flanking force encountered what appeared to be a small group of damaged Alliance vessels hiding behind a large asteroid. The Keth ships moved in for an easy kill, only to discover that the damaged ships were fully operational and had 40 more vessels hidden in the asteroid field behind them. "Trap!" Cross shouted, but it was too late. Alliance ships emerged from hiding spots throughout the asteroid belt, hitting the surprised Keth forces from 6 directions at once. Meanwhile, Admiral Kane's main fleet pushed toward Earth, sweeping, aside what seemed like token resistance. But every retreating Alliance ship led them deeper into the asteroid field, where hidden weapons platforms and minefields waited. "This is not how they fought before," Admiral Stone observed from his command ship. "Their tactics have changed." "It doesn't matter," Kane replied angrily. "We have superior firepower. We'll blast through whatever tricks they're using." But the tricks kept coming. False sensor readings led Keth ships into ambushes. Holographic projectors made single ships look like entire fleets. Remote-controlled asteroids packed with explosives rammed into enemy vessels when their guards were down. "Admiral Kane." Admiral Vex's voice came over the communication channel. "This is Admiral Vex. I'm ordering you to withdraw immediately." "Vex? You're supposed to be dead, and I don't take orders from failures." "Then you'll die like a fool," Vex replied sadly. "These humans have learned something we never did: how to fight intelligent enemies." The tide of battle turned when Admiral Stone, the most cautious of the three Keth commanders, realized they were fighting a completely different kind of war. His tactical analysis showed that every Keth move had been predicted and countered. "Kane, Cross, we need to retreat," he transmitted urgently. "This isn't a battle, it's an execution." But Kane's pride wouldn't let him accept defeat. He ordered his flagship Annihilator to make a direct assault on Earth itself, hoping to force the Alliance into a conventional battle. The human response was swift and devastating. Not one ship, but the entire Alliance fleet emerged from hiding throughout the solar system. They had been waiting, positioned according to mathematical calculations that predicted exactly where Kane would go. The Annihilator found itself surrounded by 79 ships firing in perfect coordination. Its mighty shields, designed to withstand anything the galaxy could throw at them, collapsed under the precisely focused assault. Admiral Kane's last transmission was filled with disbelief. "How did you know? How did you predict our every move?" Captain Blake's answer was simple. "Because we've been fighting wars like this for thousands of years, Admiral. You're just learning." In the aftermath, as the surviving Keth ships surrendered or fled, the galaxy realized that everything had changed. The Death World Alliance hadn't just defeated the Keth Empire. They had revolutionized warfare itself. General Rake stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching human ships rescue survivors from damaged Keth vessels. Even their enemies were treated with respect and dignity. "What happens now?" Commander Nova asked. Captain Blake looked out at the stars, where news of their victory was already spreading to 1,000 worlds. "Now the galaxy learns that there's a better way than conquest and domination. We teach them what we've learned, that the strongest weapon isn't the biggest gun or the thickest armor." "What is it then?" Admiral Vex asked quietly. Dr. Rivers smiled. "The ability to understand your enemy better than they understand themselves, and the wisdom to make them your friend instead of your victim." As the reformed Galactic Council convened on Earth for the first time in history, beings from across the galaxy came to learn from the humans. They wanted to understand how a species from a single world had changed the balance of power not through conquest, but through teaching others to think. And in the depths of space, where new threats always waited, the galaxy now had something it had never possessed before: an alliance that fought not just with courage and strength but with intelligence and unity. The humans had given the galaxy something more valuable than victory. They had given it hope for a future where wars could be won through wisdom rather than destruction. The age of the Death World Alliance had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.